Alright, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here, then welcome. My name is Gerardo. In this video, we're going to be talking about PulseChain, and more specifically, I'm going to be giving you an update on the PLS price speculation video. Consider this a part 2. When we made that video, it was in the midst of the PulseChain sacrifice phase, and as you can see now by the window open on my screen, the sacrifice phase is over. So now we have better figures, right? We know the total amount of US dollar sacrifice value. We have a better idea of what supply is going to look like. We have actual code that is released. So definitely things are coming together. Now we're waiting for public testnet. But in the meantime, I thought I'd give you guys an update on this PLS price speculation. So we're going to kind of mix a bunch of topics we've talked about in previous videos, such as the actual Ether sale, during which money was raised in the form of Bitcoin before the Ethereum launch to choose how to distribute coins. And not only that, we're going to be comparing their launch phases, their price performances, and I actually have another chart I'm going to share that I haven't done, and it makes a lot of sense, and you'll see why. So without rambling too much, you guys are already very well aware of the Pulse time bonding curve that we saw over the course of July 13th, 2021 to just recently August 2nd, right? This 19-day sacrifice period. Now, this bonding curve, in contrast to the Ethereum bonding curve during its launch, this one was actually bonded to US dollars, right? And that's different than the Ethereum bonding curve because at the time, Bitcoin was really the main crypto. I don't want to say the only one, but it was the main one, more or less by the time Ethereum was launching. So in 2014, when we had our sacrifice phase for Ethereum, they didn't call it that, but it was effectively the same thing. You could sacrifice your BTC, right? And it was even said as a disclaimer on the blog post written by Vitalik himself on the Ether sale that don't expect any profit, don't expect these tokens to have any value, and very similar language to what we see currently with Richard and PulseChain. So yeah, we have precedent of this before is all I'm trying to say. And again, their bonding curve was it was tied to Bitcoin, right? It was tied to BTC, and based on the price of BTC with this bonding curve, you effectively had a sort of rate of Ethereum versus the dollar that looked like this over the course of the sacrifice phase, and their phase lasted 42 days. So anywhere from, let's see, a bottom here of about 28 cents per Ether was the best deal anyone got, and the worst deal anyone got was about 36 cents per Ether, which it just kind of puts things in perspective. Like, you have people really freaking out over the PulseChain sacrifice phase, like, oh, I didn't get it at the best time, I could have gotten 50% more or whatever, and you look at what if these guys were complaining, right? Would you really be complaining that you didn't get, 25% more Ether if you literally got in at 28 cents or 36 cents? Looking back, you're up, almost 10,000x. At one point, it's been up over 10,000x from these prices, but I don't see anyone complaining about getting in at 36 cents as opposed to 28 cents. So just kind of want to throw that perspective out there. But let's get back into what we're talking about here. So with Ethereum, right, we saw an average, I don't want to call it ICO price, don't want to call it a pre-sale price, just the sacrifice phase price of about 30 cents, right? And if you look at what the Ether price chart did, it's pretty interesting. If you look at where it opens, and we've talked about this, it opened at about $3. So it opened at a nice 10x above what the pre-sale guys got in at. So naturally, you're going to see profit taking, right? And you saw profit taking all the way down to 15 cents. Pretty much on Kraken, people wicked it down to 15 cents. This might be the only exchange. I don't feel like going through other exchanges and seeing how low it wicked down, but it was just a daily wick, because the next day it pumped back up to 65 cents, over $1, and then rallied back up to $2, wicked back down to 50 cents, kind of had this consolidation before a waterfall down to about 42 cents, and it seemed to find this nice absolute bottom at around 41 cents actually. Let's fix this. At about 41 cents. Let's get a nice wick to wick. And basically what I'm trying to say is, if this coin launches this coin launched in August, it dumped all the way into October, and then after it found that 42-cent bottom, which mind you, the people who got in at these levels are still in profit, albeit not much, right? The guys who got in at 30 cents, what's 42 cents over 30 cents? It's like 1.4, so they're up like 40%. Yeah, so even the pre-sale guys at this very, very bottom were down only, we're up actually in profit. We're up 40%. So that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. And then again, it was another opportunity for more people to get in at similar prices, right? The sacrifice phase guys got in at better prices, but nonetheless, this was still a great entry point. I don't think anyone is bothered if they got in Ether at around 50 cents or so. Keeping in mind it's like $3,000 right now. Last I checked, it was about 3,000. So what happened next is the impressive part. I actually want to take a quick measure to move to see how long it took to dip, right? About an 86% dip over the course of 75 days. So again, could you not expect, but don't be surprised if you see something similar happen in PLS, right? Where I'll show you in a bit kind of the average price people got, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it open 10x higher, kind of like Ether did, and then over the course of maybe 2 months find a bottom basically at around the price where guys who sacrificed would be break even. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But what happened next is the exciting part, because after that we saw a rally of about 52x, right, from about the 40-cent region or so all the way to the $20 region or so. So a nice 50x move, absolutely beautiful. And I do want to show you guys the what chart was I going to show you guys? So the fact that we dumped, open 10x higher. Oh, I was going to show you the average price that people got in at. I wrote it down right here, actually. There you go. So I did a little bit of math based on, it's really simple actually. So the best possible deal anyone got for their PLS was at a dollar price of 0.00004. The reason I know that is because during the first 16 days, you had a battle for this volume ranking. The highest volume ranking got a 2.5x, right? And assuming that highest volume ranking got in between days 1 and 5, when the time curve was still flat, then it was 10,000 pulse per dollar, 2.5x bonus. They got 25,000 pulse for every dollar, right? Gives you an effective price of this, 0.00004. The worst possible deal anyone got for the PulseChain sacrifice phase was about 4x higher, so just 3 zeros, 0.000171, which is approximately about 6,000 pulse per dollar. It's actually about 5,847, but you can see that kind of the best deal, this guy got 25,000 pulse per dollar, and the worst deal got about 6,000 pulse per dollar. So about a factor of 4x or so. It's a little bit bigger than the kind of margins we saw with Ether, where, like I said, it's only about 25%, and whereas in PulseChain, it's bigger, meaning people got in at widely varying prices, right? 4x difference potentially, whereas everyone kind of got in at similar prices on Ether. So that definitely, it's different, right? So if you expect it to change things, I think it's just good to know, right? It's good to know. So on average, people got in at about 10,000 pulse per dollar. It makes kind of sense, right? 10, 15,000. It's kind of hard to actually know exactly what the average entry cost basis was, but you have kind of your bounds here so you can get an idea of where it is. And so if price opened up 10x higher than the guy who got, let's say, the worst possible deal, that would be kind of a best case scenario. Yeah, it would be a best case scenario. So in that case, it would open at about 0.0017. So at about 17% of a penny would be where it opened if it mimicked Ethereum. And then if it dumped down, let's say it opened at, let's clear all this history. All right, let's say it opened 10x higher than the worst possible deal. So you just multiply this by 10, right? And then let's say it dumps, similar to Ether, about 86%. So you're left with about 13.7%. And that would mean it dumps down to this level, which would be actually putting the guy who got the best deal in, would actually put him in the red, which is pretty interesting. So maybe we don't see a dump like that, right? Maybe we see less of a dump. Maybe it's just like a 60% dump or so, maybe a 50% dump. Because, I don't know, I think it makes sense, right? If price starts approaching kind of the cost basis of the majority, that in general you would see people less incentivized to sell. Like why would you sell when you're only like 20%, 30% in profit on like a really new coin? I don't know, it makes sense that you see sort of that initial dump, right? So again, I think it would be cool to see price open up at around, you know, a fifth of a penny maybe. That would be pretty bullish in my opinion if it opened at around about a fifth or even like 10% of a penny. Then a lot of people would be up anywhere from like 10x to, are anyone be up 50x? Yeah, the guy who got the best deal would probably be up 50x, right? If it opened at a fifth of a penny and the best deal guy got this price, yeah, he'd be up 50x. So yeah, and then you see natural profit taking, find some round bottom, and then you could potentially see something like a 50x. Now, this isn't the only precedent, right? And we've touched on this before, what Ether did, so I kind of want to show you guys something new. Look at this. So, as you guys know, PulseChain is actually kind of technically a fork of Binance Smart Chain, BSC, which itself is a fork of Ethereum, which itself is a fork of Ethereum Classic. But we're not going to get into that, right? Fork of a fork of a fork of a fork, forkception. So, what did BSC do? What did Binance do? Well, they launched their own smart chain. They basically just cloned Ethereum, and they did things a little weird, a little differently, kind of clunky to be honest. They already had BNB, so instead of creating a new token, a new native token for their general purpose blockchain, which is BSC, they just launched it empty and said, you know what, we're just gonna plug in this coin that we've been pumping up to now called BNB, and we're just gonna do this like cross-chain stuff. So it's two chains, and so again, it's a little clunky, but they did it. And BSC launched around May of 2020, right? It was trading only around $16 or so. What did it do after Binance Smart Chain launched? Well, it gained this new narrative, as not only was it a utility token for, I think, fees. Yeah, I think it was something like that too, but not only that, it gained this new narrative of being the native smart contract token, right? The gas token, so to speak, of BSC. So, once it gained this new narrative, what did it do? Well, in 350 days, it ran up about 44x. So what happened with Ether, remember it took about 240 days to run up 50x, and BNB ran up about 44x in about 350 days. So under a year, this stuff pumped about 40 to 50x. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, what if we see something similar and, let's say price finds a bottom in a way where even the guy who got the best deal is slightly in profit. So that would be similar to Ether and would be a price of about something like this, I believe, right? 4 zeros and a 5. And if it pumped 50x in less than a year, right? So let's assume it launches sometime in September, maybe October, if you're a little kind of more on the pessimistic side for software launches. And then you see kind of PLS find its bottom maybe after a couple months. So into the end of the year, maybe December, it finds its bottom. And even the guy who got the best deal is slightly in profit because it dumps to that level. And at that point, then you could expect 2022 potentially to be the actual year for PLS to shine. And we saw what can happen in a year, right? In less than a year, mind you, about a 50x. So let's throw it throw it on there, 50x, and what are you looking at? You're looking at a fifth of a penny or so. So there you have it. PLS is programmed with pretty cool fundamentals in my opinion, like it's deflationary. There will probably be a lot of other cool incentives to get PLS, maybe some liquidity mining. I do want to definitely touch actually on a few things in this video, like what that potential extra supply, that 120 trillion pulse that's probably centralized in terms of ownership, like what might that be used for. We can touch on that a little bit, but overall I wanted to just point this out that we could be seeing, you know, a fifth of a penny for your PLS price. Now, it could be higher, it could be lower, it could be completely off. I have no idea. I'm just kind of speculating here, hence the title of the video, PLS price speculation. And I mean, we've seen things do more X's, right? I wanted to point out this, which is kind of cool, the fact that the kind of range at which people got their PLS, believe it or not, in terms of dollar value, is this box more or less right here, which again, it's interesting because same founder, good old Richard Hart, he launched a crypto and it did really well. It's called Hex. And not only that, it was designed with really good unit bias, meaning there are so many units that it makes people feel really rich because they have a lot of something as opposed to 0.000 Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin or something. So you see these kind of prices where you get to have that hex to dollar meme or pulse to dollar meme because they pretty much represent really insane X's, right? 10,000x, 100,000x, just because they started so low, because their supply is kind of higher than things like Bitcoin or Ethereum by orders of magnitude. So just think that's pretty interesting that the design of this coin effectively had people enter at about these prices. So to see a similar chart, right? I don't think it'll be the exact same chart, obviously, because different game theory, but general trajectory, I think it's smart to be at least a little bullish on PLS, right? Obviously, I'm not saying throw life savings into it, not financial advice, never on this channel. I'm just doing my best to entertain, but I think to be bullish on Pulse is probably a good idea, especially because you don't see much else in crypto that's, I don't know, that has this kind of opportunity, precedent, innovation. I'd argue there's some innovation there, but yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. Now let's touch a little bit on kind of a little bonus for the end of the video. You guys might have seen this, or maybe the text is too small when I pulled it up earlier, but I did a little bit of math earlier before this video, and turns out I might have been overshooting my what I project to be the PLS supply. So I did a little bit of math, and I think it'll be closer to around 137 trillion PLS. So I'm still thinking above 100 trillion PLS, but I think my previous guesses were like 200 trillion, 150 trillion. Now I'm erring more towards like the 137 trillion or so level for PLS supply at the beginning. Keep in mind, supply will only go down after this. And obviously we saw about $14 billion enter the sacrifice phase on the last day. I mean, it's nice that it didn't enter between days 1 to 16, so it didn't basically get that 2.5x and dilute other guys who wanted to put in their big stacks. So that was pretty cool, but it did put in enough money to dilute almost everyone. So let's assume there's about 120 trillion. I think it's fair assumption, or maybe more, of the, this centralized ownership of PLS. Now, we've seen people kind of come out on YouTube and talk about how this is terrible for something like a proof of stake consensus mechanism. And I get where they're coming from, because the amount of stake you hold is kind of directly influencing whether you can be a validator or not. But I think there are nuances to this, right? I don't think you should be so quick to like attack the fact that this happened, right? I'm sure a lot of thought went into this. I don't think it was just an impulsive action, just to be frank, based on kind of the care with which the team is taking care of the entire project. I would imagine that that ethos would carry over into every action the team takes. So you just start thinking like, what could that PLS be used for, or does it actually attack? Not attack, but does it actually compromise the decentralization of the consensus? Now that gets a little complicated, so we might touch on that in a future video. But for now, let's just talk about what those PLS could be used for. So I'm just thinking, and let me know if you guys have any other ideas. But think about it. Initially, people are only earning fees, right? Or validators are only earning fees, or users like you and I who could decide to stake our PLS, we would delegate that stake to a validator, and we would earn part of the fees, right? Part of transaction fees. So, I mean, if you think about it, the whole not the whole, but a huge value proposition of PLS or Pulse in general is the fact that you'll have cheap transactions, right? And if you have cheap transactions, then the fee market wouldn't be that big, right? So how do you provide incentive for the initial validators, right? How do you bootstrap an initial validator ecosystem? I mean, in my humble opinion, I haven't given this a lot of thought, but I've thought about it a little bit. And what if that PLS is used for maybe a few validators, and that's the incentive to choose them as a validator, because they have really attractive, really attractive APY, right? Because they can offer you a lot of PLS. So the way I understand it is PLS validators will basically be able to be chosen based off of how wealthy they are or how popular they are, right? Because it's not just the biggest stack guy gets to be a validator. If you have someone giving better yields to their delegators, then I'm pretty sure, the people who decide to delegate stake to you as a validator, pretty sure if you can offer better yields, then people just go over to there. So again, I don't want to touch too much on the actual consensus protocol and whether that's compromised or not by having large stakeholders. But I will say that it's all social consensus, and I believe we can decide to simply choose a different validator, right? If the people within the PulseChain ecosystem really, really are that opposed to having that centralized ownership, then I'm pretty sure you can just delegate your stake to someone else, right? And if by popular vote, they're just not in the validator set, I'm pretty sure that's fine, right? I don't think it's really compromising the consensus protocol, but we can get into that. I keep saying it in a future video because that's a rabbit hole and I'm not fully informed, but I like to kind of plant seeds out there in your heads too, so you can start asking the right questions, because these are the right questions to be asking in my opinion. Like, is this design so innovative that it's able to kind of solve some of these issues? And again, remember that PulseChain isn't just a proof of stake system. It's actually a little more complicated than that. I believe if you go to pulsechain.com, hit the code, it takes you to the GitLab. You can read the README file, and it pretty much tells you how it's a fork of Geth, the Go Ethereum client, and Binance Smart Chain, right? And it's a proof of stake authority consensus protocol, which I believe is a hybrid between, I think it's a hybrid between delegated proof of stake and proof of authority. So proof of authority, we really need to make a whole other video for all this, because I need to inform myself a little more. And I did watch some videos and read some stuff on proof of authority, delegated proof of stake, and pretty much kind of what proof of stake authority is attempting to do. I think I get it, right? It attempts to mitigate the kind of, what's the word? I'm not gonna get into it. Let's save that for another video. Proof of stake authority. That'll be a fun one. But yeah, guys, I definitely appreciate you watching. This one's getting long. Leave a like if you enjoy this kind of content. But overall, the video, right, is about PLS price speculation. And we came up with this figure of about 1/5 of a penny by, I don't know, maybe by late 2021, or maybe it's higher, right? Because I really want to point this out. The fact that Hex did 300 and what was like 300 and something X in its first year. So assuming we do something similar, right? Let's see, first year was up to here. Yeah, about a 380X or so. So that would be much higher, right, than this. This is just accounted for 50X. So like a 350X would be closer to about 1 to 2 pennies. So anywhere from 1/5 of a penny to 1 to 2 pennies, that's pretty interesting because it's actually this kind of a range, right? Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see that. So I think the most bearish scenario at the very end of like a year, in my opinion, again, this is just, I don't have a crystal ball, but this would be my guess, would be 1/5 of a penny, kind of a bearish target, and a more bullish target would be something closer to like 1 to 2 pennies by, let's say, late 2022. Have I been saying 2021 this whole time? Right, next year is 2022. That's what I meant. I think 2022 is PulseChain's year to shine. And again, anywhere from 1/5 of a penny to, at the most bullish, 2 pennies. Yeah, that's the PLS price speculation part 2 video for you. Appreciate you watching. Subscribe, comment down below your predictions, and yeah, share this with whoever you think might enjoy this as well. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.